Did you know that foreign investors are quietly funding lawsuits in American courts through a practice called third-party litigation funding? Shadowy overseas funders are paying to sue American companies in our courts, and they don't pay a dime in U.S. taxes if there is an award or settlement. They profit tax-free from our legal system, while U.S. companies are tied up in court, and American families pay the price, to the tune of $5,000 a year. But there is a solution. A new proposal before Congress would close this loophole and ensure these foreign investors pay taxes, just like the actual plaintiffs have to. It's a common-sense move that discourages frivolous and abusive lawsuits and redirects resources back into American jobs, innovation, and growth. Only President Trump and congressional Republicans can deliver this win for America and hold these foreign investors accountable. Contact your lawmakers today and demand they take a stand to end foreign-funded litigation abuse.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Picture this. You're in the garage, hands covered in grease, just finished up tuning your engine with a part you found on eBay. And you realize, you know what? I could also use new brakes. So where do you go next? Back to eBay. And you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. You order a part, and if it doesn't fit, send it back. Simple as that. So when you dive into your next car project, start with eBay. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. What does the term digital workplace mean to you? In today's world of AI, robotics, and AR, it's much more than an office full of people on computers. It can be anywhere from a factory floor to the top of a crane to the cockpit of an F1 car. Wherever your digital workplace may be, TeamViewer's mission is to make work better. How? By securely connecting your people with the data, expertise, or insights they need in real time to make work more efficient. By automating and streamlining IT and OT support to fix problems before they happen, to make work more productive. And by bringing all the possibilities of a secure and flexible digital workplace to all your people everywhere to make work more innovative. So discover how TeamViewer can make work better, wherever it happens across your business. Learn more at teamviewer.com/workbetter.
Oh, my friends, this is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on context, help each other understand.
Today, Andy Beach talks to us about Audible expanding its generated voices for audiobooks. Apple buys a game studio, but also gets fined in Europe.
Hey, good news, bad news. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Jenn Cutter.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. There is a lot of Apple news, good and bad today, so let's do a quick state of the Apple. I wanted to take this metaphor too far and have stems and cores and all of that, but I didn't do that. We've just got like 4 items. First, Apple bought its first game studio, RAC7. Now, when I say studio, I mean it's a 2-person outfit. They make the very popular Sneaky Sasquatch, an Apple arcade game. They've made a bunch of other popular games in the past. Sneaky Sasquatch, probably their most popular. Apple says it's a unique situation. They're trying to deflect the idea that they're going to just start buying up game studios right and left. However, Bloomberg sources say Apple is going to release a dedicated app for video games across iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple TV later this year that would replace Game Center. So it would fold in all those Game Center features into an app that also had a game launcher and some editorial content. And apparently on the Mac, it would be able to include games from outside the App Store. So before we get to the rest of the Apple news, Jen, what do you think about Apple kind of solidifying or consolidating? I'm not sure what the word is here of its game strategy.
Well, in the journo chats, we were all like, oh, it's that time again. Apple remembering it has Apple Arcade and other games and wants to push it. The fact that they're doing this around the same time as the Switch 2 is like, all right, well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
That said, Apple games could be an interesting thing. There is a game that I want that is coming out in a bit that I am contemplating buying an Apple TV for, because I don't have one, and it would simplify having to use a phone and then connect a phone to the TV. And it's a convoluted thing. It'll be out soon. Kind of excited to talk about it. But, yeah, so game launcher and editorial content, which way are they going with that? Is it editorial like people like me, or is it editorial like when you're opening the App Store and there's the, hey, check out this game that you should play that no money was totally involved in?
From what Gurman's article wrote, it sounds like it's kind of like that. It's kind of like they'll have some like, here's what's new in Apple Arcade, or here's the hot new game kind of thing, versus, serious evaluative journalism. You're not going to get any 1-star reviews or anything, I'm guessing. But I think, we forget that Apple is, by some metrics, the most popular gaming platform in the world. You have to narrow the metric away from a lot of games. But when you're talking about just mobile games, loads of people who don't even consider themselves gamers play games on Apple. And right now, the arcade is kind of harder to use than it should be. It's not hard to use, but you kind of have to know where to look in the App Store to find it. And then, right, Game Center stuff is over there. So it makes sense to me to consolidate it.
Yeah, I think a fact that a lot of people miss both in and out of gamings is that there are games that started in Apple Arcade that went on to full console releases.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Hello Kitty Island Adventure. It's on Switch now. It was way too much money for what it was, but it was a great game. And then they had thrown money at the original Final Fantasy guy's studio for his gorgeous RPG, which did eventually leave that private ecosystem. So I'm more curious to see when they include games from outside the App Store on the Mac, supposedly. So we'll have to see how that works and whether it becomes like an Epic situation or a Steam situation, or whether they mean the like second party things where if they buy the studio.
The way it should work is when you're on the Mac, because you can have these third party games because you can have games outside of the App Store, you will be able to see them in your launcher. That's which
most people do with Steams, where you can just like add a game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's probably a thing that Apple wouldn't mind leaking to Mark Gurman when you have all of this bad news about Apple's strategy, to be like, in advance of WWDC, let's get him thinking about other things. Let's get him thinking about, an announcement of a video game app at WWDC. But we've got some other less good news. For Apple. The European Commission has published its full ruling against Apple's App Store practices, speaking of, meaning the company is now on the clock, 30 days to change its practices to avoid further fines under the Digital Markets Act. If you're like, wait, I thought the EU already decided that this was a problem. Yes. The EU's preliminary ruling came out April 23rd, and that's when everybody wrote their headlines. Nobody's talking about this except us, because we like to actually keep you informed of what's actually happening. So when that preliminary provisional ruling came out, Apple had a chance to respond. The EU found that Apple's restrictions on what app developers can say when sending users out of the app to pay was too strict, and that its fees on such behaviors were too high. Apple responded to that, and now the Commission says Apple has not put forward any convincing arguments. So this is the day that the ruling stands, and Apple now has to change its ways.
Yeah, I think they're ready to go. They took a stab at it, but the court very succinctly said, nah.
Yeah, the commission says you didn't give us anything that changed our mind, so you've got to change it. And if you don't change it, one of the other things they put in this ruling was you're going to keep getting fined the longer you go without changing it. And I expect Apple will comply and change it, but they're trying to put some consequences on it. Let's go back to good news for Apple. It has added the iPad to the self-service repair program. That means that to repair your iPad now, you can get manuals, genuine parts, diagnostics, tools, including rental tools, if you want to conduct your own repairs. This applies to the iPad Air with the M2 chip, and later the iPad Pro with the M4, the Mini with the A17 Pro chip, and the iPad with the A16 chip. The program includes repairs for the display, battery, camera, and charging port for those iPads. And the program's coming to Canada this summer, making it available in 34 countries now. So, Jen, you'll be able to use this if you want.
Yeah, I wasn't sure when they'd get to it. So we've kind of been looking at this going like, aw.
Yeah, so not only do you get the iPad, you get everything
Yes.
later this summer, so that's good.
At last.
Our final bit of Apple news, you tell us if you think this is good news or not. And Counterpoint Research says the iPhone 16 was the best-selling smartphone in Q1 this year. Yes, the 16, not the Pro, not the Pro Max. This is the first time a base model iPhone has topped the list since 2022. Apple still dominating worldwide, had the top 4 spots on the chart. Followed by Samsung, which had 4 of the next 5 slots. Xiaomi's Redmi 14C 4G took number 8 on strong sales in the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. And then Apple took number 10. So Apple had those first 4 slots and then a 5th one, so 5 out of the top 10. Xiaomi wasn't in the top 10 this time last year, so that's significant to see them pop up. And the iPhone base model topped the chart largely on strong sales in Japan. We talk a lot about Apple facing headwinds in China, but they were seeing increased sales in Japan that has helped make up for that. Now, this feels like good news for Apple in the face of all the recent doubts about its future, but keep in mind a couple of things. Counterpoint says the low-end tier of smartphones is the fastest growing segment. That's why you see Xiaomi creeping up there. It makes up 20% of all global smartphone sales. And I went and looked up a little historical context. The year the iPhone first arrived, 2007, Nokia had 6 of the top 10 slots in global sales. 4 years later, Nokia had none of the top slots. So I'm not saying that's gonna happen to Apple, but just because you dominate doesn't mean you'll continue to dominate.
Well, this story definitely relevant to my interest as a new owner of the base model iPhone 16, because I had an 11 Pro that I got in 2020, and I finally had to replace it because, you know, the battery life had deteriorated, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gotta future proof. I looked at all the models, talked to a bunch of really excellent Apple Store people, and I could not find any way to justify going over the base model. Also, so because I don't have a lot of USB-C stuff, I had to buy a new brick, which was a chunk of change. And then I buy AppleCare. It's not that I toss my phone in my hockey bag anymore, but in case I do, I want to have the AppleCare. Yeah. And so that brought me north of $1,500. So moving that even higher by several hundreds was not on my list of things to do. The phone's great. I like it. I can't see a need for more. And, the way people are budget conscious these days, base models might be where it's at. Yeah.
I mean, if the lower end phones are the growing segment because of spending concerns, economic concerns, whatever, it makes sense that the base model would be the top iPhone. But that means there's an opportunity there, for someone to take a bite out of the apple. Haha.
DTNS is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to Ali Sanjabi, AB Puppy, Dale McKaylee, and Mark Stedman.
Picture this. You're in the garage, hands covered in grease, just finished up tuning your engine with a part you found on eBay, and you realize, you know what? I could also use new brakes. So where do you go next? Back to eBay. You can find anything there. It's unreal. Wipers, headlights, even cold air intakes. It's all there. And you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. You order a part, and if it doesn't fit, send it back. Simple as that. Look, DIY fixes can be major. Doesn't matter if it's just maintenance or a major mod. You got it, especially when things are guaranteed to fit. So when you dive into your next car project, start with eBay. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love.
When you think of hot, you might think about the tragic time you ate too much wasabi. No. Or about getting into your car on a summer day when it feels more like stepping into a sauna. But heat can work in your favor, like during Verizon Red Hot Deal Days. Get hundreds of hot deals on all your favorites, like iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence, Apple Watch Series 10, and iPad, on any plan. Only until May 28th for new and existing customers. Offer available on My Plan. Only at Verizon.
Did you know that foreign investors are quietly funding lawsuits in American courts through a practice called third-party litigation funding? Shadowy overseas funders are paying to sue American companies in our courts, and they don't pay a dime in U.S. taxes if there is an award or settlement. They profit tax-free from our legal system, while U.S. companies are tied up in court and American families pay the price, to the tune of $5,000 a year. But there is a solution. A new proposal before Congress would close this loophole and ensure these foreign investors pay taxes, just like the actual plaintiffs have to. It's a common-sense move that discourages frivolous and abusive lawsuits and redirects resources back into American jobs, innovation, and growth. Only President Trump and congressional Republicans can deliver this win for America and hold these foreign investors accountable. Contact your lawmakers today and demand they take a stand to end foreign-funded litigation abuse.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
There's always more to talk about, so let's get right to the briefs.
Anthropic started rolling out a beta voice mode for its chatbot Claude. Mobile app users can have spoken English conversations, which follows OpenAI's and Grok's voice mode and Google's Gemini Live. Claude voice conversations count against usage caps, so free users can probably do 20 to 30. Paid users can use voice mode with their Google Workspace integration, and free users of Claude can now also have it search the web when it answers questions.
It's a little bit late to the voice mode game, but I like that. I like using voice mode with these. It's very convenient. Microsoft is introducing the Windows native update orchestration platform. This does not involve oboes or timpanis. It lets third-party apps and drivers deliver their updates through the Windows Update service. So instead of you having to go and jump through a bunch of hoops, you can just have it updated when the rest of your Windows updates. App makers can sign up for a private preview. This would also list the updates in the app update history, which is nice. Developers would have to reconfigure apps to connect to the Microsoft Update API if they want to do this, but in exchange, they wouldn't have to maintain their own update systems.
Opera has launched a new browser called Neon that integrates agentic features. The sidebar of the browser has chat, do, and make buttons. Chat seems obvious. Do lets you ask the browser to do things like fill out forms or make trip bookings. And make can do some coding to make games or websites for you. There is a wait list for Opera Neon, and users will eventually have to pay a subscription fee.
I tell you, man, Opera keeps coming up with stuff
Yes.
to get your attention, to make you go like, oh, maybe I do want to use Opera. It's got VPN built in. It's got a bunch of generative model features already built in. Now they've got a full browser. So what I feel like one of these days something's going to catch on, or maybe it's just slowly going to build up.
Yeah, well, they had a full court press for gamers when they sponsored every gaming YouTuber I watched.
Right?
And like, hey, we've got this whole page with all of the gaming releases, and we can give you all this YouTube stuff, or we'll give you all of your new favorite content right in the browser. So,
Yeah. It's not like they're not trying.
Yeah.
The governor of the U.S. state of Texas has signed into law an online child safety bill that requires app stores to verify user ages And if the age is that of a minor, require parental approval for downloads of most apps and in-app payments. Texas follows the U.S. state of Utah, which recently passed the App Store Accountability Act. Remember, Apple and Google were lobbying hard against this. So here's another one they lost.
Reuters sources say China's Shein plans to stop waiting for China's government to approve its stock IPO in London and will shift the IPO to Hong Kong. In somewhat related news, Africa's biggest online retailer Jumia has started increasing the number of Chinese retailers on its platform as it faces stiff competition from Shein and Temu. Temu launched in Nigeria in 2024, and Shein has expanded to South Africa, Kenya, and Ghana. Jumia has dominated online sales on the continent for years, but is under pressure to become profitable. Still, Jumia knows the local retailers better and offers near instant delivery and pay on delivery.
Yeah, I think this is important to note just because a lot of times when we talk about Shein and Temu, it's in the context of they operate in China and the United States. And with tariffs, will they be able to operate in the United States? And it turns out they are operating all over the world. And in some cases, putting up some stiff competition. So you may not have heard of Jumia before either, but it has been a very dominant player on the subcontinent. And so it's going to give them a run for its money, but it's going to have to do it. Be interesting to see if Jumia succeeds. Could it expand beyond its borders, and take the fight elsewhere? I'm curious to watch that. Telegram has partnered with XAI to distribute and integrate the Grok chatbot into the Telegram Messenger app. A video posted by Telegram demonstrates using Grok for writing suggestions, summarizing chats, and creating stickers.
I would love to hear from somebody who is super into stickers because every chat program has them, and I feel like the weird one who's never, ever used them, especially never felt the need to create my own.
I've done them because they exist, and I'm like, let's see how this works. And then, I kind of don't have but maybe I'm the wrong person because obviously everybody makes it. Somebody must be using it.
Countries continue to encourage local data centers to keep control over their citizens' data. Bell Canada announced it will invest in building data centers in 6 cities in Canada, with the first set to come online in June in Kamloops, BC. The first customer will be a U.S. chip startup named Grok. That is Grok with a Q, so it is not the same as XAI's Grok with a K. Grok with a Q is also a partner with Saudi Arabia on a similar project. The series of data centers will also come to Manitoba and Quebec and be called Bell AI Fabric. It will have 500 megawatts of capacity.
Yeah, there is a growing movement to keep data centers local for privacy concerns. That is definitely a part of this. Another part of it is Grok with a Q makes chips that do the inferencing. Inferencing is when you're asking a chatbot something, not when you're training the chatbot to do something. Training can kind of be done anywhere, and then you can port the model. But inferencing, if you want it to work really fast, needs to happen closer to the person asking the question. So that's another reason to keep data centers local.
Yeah, I've been looking for more Canadian places to store my stuff. It's been challenging. It is a lot easier for me to find places in the EU that I can join for services. So I am very pro more data centers in Canada, even if it means dealing with Bell.
I was going to say, even if it's Bell Canada. And the Register has an opinion piece from Stephen J. Von Nichols about AI model collapse. Kind of passing this along just so we are familiar with the term model collapse, because it's something that's being debated out there. The concern is that models are trained more and more on synthetic data, sometimes by accident, because they're trained on data that's out on the web, and that data out on the web was created by another model. And if that happens too much, they may lose accuracy and reliability. Counter arguments in the debate say that you can mix in fresh human-generated content and still get the benefits of trading off synthetic data while mitigating the onset of model collapse. Stephen J. Von Nichols argues that no, model collapse is coming. Your mileage may vary on the opinion, but this is a debate we should be aware of.
Yeah, well, we've debated it ourselves on this show multiple times. So it's nice to see this go a bit wider. People going,
Yeah. Is it a thing that is going to happen or not? Let's find out. Those are the essentials for today. Let's take a closer look at an ongoing story.
Recently, Audible introduced AI-generated audiobook narrations, aiming to broaden access but sparking debates over the future of human storytelling. Tom talked to Andy Beach to find out more.
Andy, thanks again for joining us.
Hey, Tom, good to see you.
So I know Audible has had the ability for independent authors to do generation, but it sounds like they're expanding this and making it available for publishers and everybody now.
Yeah, they're really, they want to expand both the number of books they have, but also the number of translated books that they have. So they're really expanding the program out, allowing publishers to choose AI-generated voices across multiple languages for their narration when it comes together.
And that could be in multiple languages, which is a big deal because a lot of times audiobooks are just done in the native language. Most of the time that means it's English. But a lot of times there have been audiobooks I've run into where I'm like, oop, that one has not been translated out of Korean, German, whatever. And I can't get it. I have to wait for somebody to translate it. So it could speed that process along.
Yeah, I think it is an interesting move. Like, I know it sparks debate and problems out there, but I think it does open up that opportunity to have books in the language that you want, more readily accessible. And the reality was we probably weren't going to get certain books translated, and this gives an opportunity that simply wasn't going to exist without it.
Yeah. And so when you talk about how this affects the job market, that's important to think about. A lot of these translations would have never employed anyone, but some of them would. How do you think this impacts not only the voice actors that do this, but also the translators?
Well, the Guardian interviewed, who is where this article came from, spoke to a couple of different opinions about this, and they spoke to a woman who is a audiobook narrator. Said that the reality was that, she felt like a synthetic voice model was never going to get the nuance that a human was going to as part of it. And I do think that's accurate today. And I think it takes a lot more energy and effort to get sort of the model to provide the quote unquote acting that a human would provide. But again, I don't think that's right now, I don't think that's Audible's goal. The goal is to get something that wasn't going to exist. They weren't going to necessarily translate, a book into 75 different languages. Now they have that option to put it out there so that they at least reach an audience they weren't going to see before.
Yeah. When I was talking to Aaron Morton from Sound Booth Theater recently, we were talking about all the lengths they go through to cast people, to produce audio, to make it theatrical. And I think what they do is very work intensive, and survives because they have a very enthusiastic audience for their kind of thing. But if you can save on this end of things, the more mundane end of things, so to speak, more publishers could spend more time on making richer audio experiences in other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think this is just a first step in sort of AI for both translation and generally for more audiobook services. I ran into an interesting company at NAB back in April when I was there called Adapt. And they had a model where they were working with a number of humans around the world. They call them voice ambassadors. And when they don't do audiobooks, but they get hired to localize content in other languages. And what they do is they really make it a project of the person who's a subject matter expert in their language, but also has a background in acting and voice work. And what they tend to do is they actually re-record themselves doing the voices, the various parts of the things they're translating, so that they get the right inflection and intonation. And then they use that to then go back and take a clone of whatever the acting voice was from the piece and put it out so that it has the right inflections in the other pieces. So I think there could be a model where audiobooks start adapting to something like that as well. And that really gives still a role for the human. The human in the middle becomes the person who's traditionally been that narrator of an audiobook, except now if they also know other languages, or if they are, they obviously know at least English or some other piece, they can be helping translate in a style, but maybe it be other voices that are potentially able to fulfill on that rather than just theirs.
Oh yeah, it's like the mocap actor, basically, but for audio. Yeah,
that's a great example. Yeah, it's like a vocal mocap.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the last question people are going to have is, how do I tell if the voice on an audiobook I'm about to buy was generated or not? Is this going to be clear to people?
Yeah, so they are making an effort to call it out as part of the copy and the language that goes on the book. I will say also, though, that I feel like very rapidly we all recognize when we are listening to a synthetic voice. It gets harder at times, but I believe this is part of the nuance that as we work with AI generally, we are all quickly understanding the limitations, and therefore we're better understanding as humans sort of where those lines get drawn. So
yeah, it's that literacy you get the more you're exposed to something.
Yeah, and the line for Uncanny Valley moves as part of this, and it will change as the quality of these evolve. But my hope is that we just keep a firm thing in place for companies to call out when they're using AI and where, and it'll hopefully take some of the stigma away from it as part of that as well.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for chatting with us as always. If folks want to follow your Substack and all the work you do, where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go over to abeach.substack.com, write about the convergence of media technology and AI.
What would you like to hear us talk about on the show? One way to let us know is our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show.
Picture this. You're in the garage, hands covered in grease, just finished up tuning your engine with a part you found on eBay. And you realize, you know what? I could also use new brakes. So where do you go next? Back to eBay. You can find anything there. It's unreal. Wipers, headlights, even cold air intakes. It's all there. And you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. You order a part, and if it doesn't fit, send it back. Simple as that. Look, DIY fixes can be major. Doesn't matter if it's just maintenance or a major mod. You got it, especially when things are guaranteed to fit. So when you dive into your next car project, start with eBay. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love.
When you think of hot, you might think about the tragic time you ate too much wasabi. Or about getting into your car on a summer day when it feels more like stepping into a sauna. But heat can work in your favor, like during Verizon Red Hot Deal Days. Get hundreds of hot deals on all your favorites, like iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence, Apple Watch Series 10, and iPad, on any plan. Only until May 28th for new and existing customers. Offer available on My Plan. Only at Verizon.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, Tim has an idea to help a different Tim find an alternative to Pocket, which is shutting down.
Yes, thank you to all the Tims. My brother's named Tim, so I'm partial to the Tims out there. Tim yesterday asked if there was an alternative to Pocket, and Tim today says, well, maybe. Tim today says, I tried Pocket back in the day, but it was a little much for my needs, so I rolled over to Instapaper.com. That lets me save articles I'm interested in and also read articles that are blocked at work without having to wait for IT to add them to the whitelist. It does all this while cleaning up all the fluff and adverts on the page, making it excellent for saving recipes. The search function requires premium on Android and the web, but is free on iOS. There are folders, but no tags. Finally, most browsers have extensions, or you can usually find or make a JavaScript shortcut that either lets you save the page or view it. Hope that helps. Signed, a different Tim.
Yeah. So thank you, a different Tim, for showing me that Instapaper still exists. I thought it was just one of those things that disappeared.
Yeah. Instapaper is one that I also used like Pocket back in the day. And I don't even remember at what point I stopped using it. So a great reminder. And maybe Tim can help another Tim out. This is good. I like it.
What are you thinking about? Have you got some insight into a story? Please share it with us over at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Big thanks to Andy Beach and all the Tims for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. It's made possible thanks to our patrons. Patreon.com/DTNS. Talk to you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Ending the recording.
Did you know that foreign investors are quietly funding lawsuits in American courts through a practice called third-party litigation funding? Shadowy overseas funders are paying to sue American companies in our courts, and they don't pay a dime in U.S. taxes if there is an award or settlement. They profit tax-free from our legal system, while U.S. companies are tied up in court, and American families pay the price, to the tune of $5,000 a year. But there is a solution. A new proposal before Congress would close this loophole and ensure these foreign investors pay taxes, just like the actual plaintiffs have to. It's a common-sense move that discourages frivolous and abusive lawsuits and redirects resources back into American jobs, innovation, and growth. Only President Trump and congressional Republicans can deliver this win for America and hold these foreign investors accountable. Contact your lawmakers today and demand they take a stand to end foreign-funded litigation abuse.
Hi, it's Paige from Giggly Squad. Let's be real, cat dads are in their golden era. Temptations, America's #1 cat treat brand, is celebrating how seriously irresistible these guys are. They've got sensitivity, snack timing precision, and their cats adore them. Add in a handful of Temptations treats, and boom, you've got a certified cat dad. Show more love to the cat dad in your life with Temptations cat treats, and tag your fave moments with #CatDadSighting. You know we're dying to see them.